okay, the unemployment issue. It's one of the issues that's stirring up people who are attending the protests, and I'm sure you've received emails and messages and calls about this from your constituents, right? About the unemployment benefits running out for some people on July 1st, right? I think you pointed out that, well, you know, we when the Democrats were in power, we incurred a lot of debt.
$2.5 billion. Okay.
Can you explain that? Because I don't think most people know that background.
Okay. Well, let's do one thing first, because you bring up a good question. When the people come here to protest on Monday nights, what are they protesting about? Lack of jobs, less income, probably none of them on higher taxes, but they're complaining about the fact that benefits are being cut and all that stuff. What we're doing is making North Carolina a better place to live with a more stable source of revenue so we can take care of the priorities of government. Everything we're doing is trying to solve their problems. What they're trying to say is, we like it the way it is, meaning they want poverty, they want paychecks that are less. Why would we want to settle for something that is second rate? They're out protesting, and what we believe is we're doing is actually solving everything they're describing. So, first of all, that was something that I needed to say, because I don't agree. They're welcome to protest, but if you're going to protest, make sure you know what you're arguing about. We're offering solutions to the problems that they're complaining about. If you stay with the status quo, you're going to be stuck in the same problems that they're alluding to. But let's talk about the unemployment benefits that you're describing. That was a system that since 1997, it has been losing money. That fund is being paid exclusively, not by tax dollars directly, but by businesses when they pay their unemployment insurance. It goes into the federal system and into the state system, but it's combined. And we spend billions of dollars every year trying to help keep people that are unemployed in a situation where they can take care of their family, and more importantly, go out and find a good job at some point. We retrain them. We do a lot of extra money spending to get them prepared to take on the new job. Let's say their job is no longer in existence. They need to be ready and re-educated in the community college system so that they can go out and find the new global jobs, different than what it was tobacco, textile, and furniture of years ago. Things have changed. North Carolina has changed from a rural economy to an urban economy. And so what we're saying is we need to change the way we do business. And in doing so, the steps we took, we were $2.5 billion in the hole in the unemployment. We weren't going to be able to borrow any more money from the federal government. So what we had is a bankrupt system that needed to have changes made to allow us to be sure that, yes, it gave everybody an opportunity to go out and find their job, but more importantly, if your system is bankrupt, it's not ready and it's not available to take care of the next group of people that are unemployed. So to let the system remain bankrupt, which is not a good place to be, was not a right or wise decision for the future.
But for the people whose benefits were just be cut on July 1st,
yeah.
And they don't know where to turn for assistance.
Well, I mean, they've had 6 months of notice on knowing that we were going to be doing this, and many of them that are on there have been on there a very long time, and so they would have had an opportunity to get educated, to find a job. There are still jobs out there. You know, we were stuck with the $2.7 billion hole that the Democrats stuck us with in our budget. We worked our way out of that. We actually created more money the next year so that we could pay our bills, especially in Medicaid. Medicaid is absolutely out of control and killing our budget. But what we did do from July of 2011, when our tax policy went in, initial tax policy, till today, we've created 179,000 private sector jobs. So we're working to put people back to work. What we're trying to say is the status quo failed you. We need to find another way of doing this, to create an environment that North Carolina will create jobs for people to work.
Some of the economists have worried about the impact, immediate impact of people just not having the money to spend that would go into the economy.
You mean just from the UI's portion, you mean?
Yeah.
We've given 6 months of notice on this. New ones come on board, they're eligible. You know, the ones that have been on there for a long period of time were given 6 months notice to have a chance to go out and find a job for them to go ahead and work their way into the system.
But if they haven't, I mean, are you
Well,
worried
there are
about-
other, I worry about everybody.
Okay.
But more importantly, I worry about the fact that they don't have a good job to be able to take care of their families and be part of personal responsibility to do so. You know, you don't keep giving government assistance if it's not solving the problem. Income is declining, poverty increasing, unemployment fifth highest in the country. Do you think you're doing the right thing, and should we keep going in that direction?
We spoke to Dr. Michael Walden,
Yes.
economist.
Yes.
He's saying that he didn't necessarily think that low tax rates automatically meant there would be economic growth and job creation. But he said there are other factors like education
Yes.
that were more important in economic growth. So I don't know if you...
Yeah, I've spoken with Michael. I have a great deal of respect for him. Not one of them is any more important than the other. If you don't, and what we have worked on since taking over in January of 2011 has been our plan. And you think about it as five circles in what is a competitive economy. Right. If you don't have a good education, you don't have a competent workforce to partake and bring businesses in here. If you don't have energy, low-cost energy, your business is not going to be competitive. So we moved in the direction of shale gas and natural gas production. If you don't have regulatory reform, you have your businesses can't be competitive to sell goods. If you don't have a transportation system to move people and goods, not just across North Carolina, but across the globe, because we're in a global competitive economy. And the last of the 5 points is tax reform. All of them together gives us a competitive economy, which will give us the economic growth and the jobs. Tax reform in itself is not the solution. It's combining all of the pieces together to accomplish the goal of making it a competitive economy, making North Carolina a good place to do business. We already know it's a great place to live, but a good place to do business, affordable, and also allowing us to create the jobs to put our North Carolina citizens back to work.
For people who are really hanging by a thread right now,
Yeah.
I think they believe that public assistance is necessary, though, to help the poor right now.
You help people help themselves to get better. That's the way it's always been.
But I mean, if there are people who really can't, they just don't fit into the economy. Like, we met people in North Carolina who became disabled in their mid-40s and 50s. You know, they physically can't work.
Okay, I mean, how many are you talking about?
I don't know. Us meeting personally?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying about, you know, what concerns me is this.
Yeah, tell me.
You know, you listen to national statistics, and today it's 8 or 9% of all the people are disabled in America.
Right.
Do you think that that's really a fact? Are there almost, if you look at 300 million people, are there 30 million people that are disabled and can't do any work?
I noticed that when the protesters come in, you don't see lawmakers, especially Republican lawmakers, really interacting with them at all. Some of the Democratic ones are now coming and shaking their hands and so on. And I think it might be good if there was a sense that, they're welcome there.
I mean, I've listened to their concerns and recognized them, and I hope they would recognize the fact that the way that was being done in the past is not the answer to their problems.
Right. You mean by the Democratic Party?
Well, that's right. Yeah. I mean, how business was done. Business as usual and the status quo caused the problems that they're complaining about. Now, I'm talking the economic problems. You know, if you talk about voting issues, guess what? The majority of the people in the United States want the election process to be fair and to be honest. Okay?
And you're saying that the voter ID would...
The voter ID. I mean, you know, you need...
But how about things like cutting early voting? Like, that doesn't seem to help with
believe it or
fairness,
not, you might not believe this, but my first bill when I was here on early voting, okay?
You wanted early voting?
My bill is there. Now, it got taken from me, but my bill was the first bill, and you can look back, early voting, I promoted that.
Oh, okay.
It got abused. Okay, abused in the sense that it was never designed to give one group an advantage over another. It was never designed to say you can walk in and just vote. That was never what it was. You should follow the same rules as everybody else. You register, and then you go ahead and vote. I walk in and I'll show my ID. I said, I want you to know who I am to make sure you record me correctly. Everybody should have that same requirement. Because you can't get to the Bank of America building, you can't get on an airplane, you can't get you can't get a Medicaid done without an ID, you can't cash a check with an ID. For someone to say that you don't have an ID, you can't live in this society without an ID.
Yeah.
Okay? And for them to say that it interferes with the voter turnout, look at Georgia. They've had better voter turnout now after they implemented it because people had confidence in the system. And they say, my vote actually matters now. The last thing this country needs and this state needs is to lose confidence in the electoral process. It's already bad enough they're losing confidence in the government.
Well, I think more people are concerned about early voting and gerrymandering, the redistricting.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. I was involved in the redistricting.
Okay.
And I will tell you very honestly, I followed the letter of the law, the way it was written, the way the courts interpreted it. Just got changed recently. And we're going to have to see how that impacts and how we would have to do it for the future times. Not for now. The law is what we have, because you don't change districts until after this next census. Mm-hmm. But the most important part about it is we followed the law as it was interpreted by the Supreme Court in North Carolina, the Supreme Court in the United States. All of them have validated all of these, and it's like a cookbook. You follow this law, and it's the Stevenson decision. That is what the North Carolina Supreme Court told us to do back in 2003. And if you just follow the law, it's like making a cake. You come out with this result. And there's no gerrymandering.
It's not part. You don't think that process was partisan?
Let me just say to you, is politics partisan? Yes, it has to be, because if you wouldn't have partisan politics. Is life not different of opinions? Of course it is. Are people going to disagree? The law, if I can show you a law in black and white, you and I may disagree on what it means. But what it is, if the court says this is how you do it, that's the law you follow. We followed the Section 5 and the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act as the court told us to do it. So if my responsibility was to follow the law, and then, more importantly, get it approved by the Justice Department, who is Mr. Obama's Justice Department, we did it in record time with not a challenge. Now, what does that say about following the law? They showed, if they had concerns, they would have said, change it. But they didn't. So
do you feel there is no racial factor at all in the...
Only by what is required by the Voting Rights Act.
Do you agree with anything that they're saying, the protest?
Do I like poverty in the state of North Carolina? Absolutely not. That's why I was willing to make a step forward in changing it.
Well, there's one thing that you seem to be agreeing with them on, is this idea of lobbyists and special interests putting too much pressure on the process.
I will say to you right now that lobbyists, do you know what lobbyists are? Anybody willing to say they're defending a certain group. But every individual person that says, I don't want my Social Security changed even though it follows the federal law, that's a lobbyist, that's a special interest group. Anybody that gets something from government at the expense of everybody else is a special interest. That tax policy book, which is grown from 1930 to that big, makes special interest of every group. Rather than treating everybody the same in a very fair system that would actually create jobs and economic growth and prosperity, they are willing to say, I want my piece of the pie, to heck with the next guy. We can no longer continue rowing the boat in the direction we're doing it, because of the fact that there are fewer and fewer taxpayers willing to and able to pay the money to allow as large a number of folks to be on government assistance and government programs.
Is there a message that you want to get out to the people who are really upset, who are getting arrested? Because many of them are very good people.
I have no doubt that they're not good people, and they have every right to protest. But this is not ideologue. I'm probably the most pragmatic person in the world, because I look at what works and doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I stop doing it. Okay? And if it does work, or I can make it better, that's my responsibility as a leader in the state of North Carolina.
But do you have any special message directed at them? Is there something you would like to?
Yeah, just to let them know that they need to look and see, are they satisfied with where they are? If that's the best they're willing to settle for, then maybe they need to reconsider the way we're getting at it. If they're happy with poverty, why would we want to continue? If that, and I can't imagine they like poverty. I can't imagine the people that are unemployed, and there were unemployed people over there. Why would you want to continue doing that? Let's change the way we do business so that we can give them an opportunity for a job.